This is probably one of the most anticipated collabs in recent times. The FATfreq x HBB Deuce. What an unfortunate name. Now, by this time, you're probably in the middle of fulfilling pre-orders that we have gotten from the last 1.5 months. Jesus Christ, it's been that long. But for those of you who are out of the loop, let me just run through the specifications. Once again, the Deuce is a collaboration between local powerhouse FATfreq, aka FATfreq, and audio reviewer HBB, aka Hawaii Bad Boy, aka Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews, aka Bagar. The Deuce is a dual dynamic driver IEM with one dynamic driver acting as a subwoofer playing under 200 Hz, and the other dynamic driver acting as a full range driver playing above 200 Hz. I wonder where they got that idea from. The Deuce retails for $239 for the 3.5mm version and $359 for the 4.4mm version. For those of you coming in with the pre-order special, you'd also receive an adapter that adds on an additional 7 decibels of bass boost. I wonder where they got that idea from. First, let's talk about the people who are actually manufacturing these things. FATfreq is, again, a local IEM maker who are most famous for their Basshead IEM. For example, the Maestro Mini as well as the Scarlett Mini. I've talked about them at length, so for those of you who are interested, you can go over to this video where I talk about them in a separate, smaller channel called Critical. And of course, the man who is collaborating with them, HBB, aka Hawaii Bad Boy, aka the actual name of his channel, which is Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. He's a man who is known for his love for bass. In fact, he's the one who actually started the Basshead IEM thread on HeadFi before they banned him. So you can see why when these two entities collide, it's where everyone started to get hyped for what they are about to create. And what they have created is, well, the Deuce. But at this point, all of you probably ask the same question, which is, Crin, how does it actually sound? Does it actually have a lot of bass? Well, let's talk about that. Now, in terms of the first question, of course it is bass. Why even ask that? A FATfreq x HBB collab not having bass is the same as KFC not serving chicken. Just like with the Scarlett Mini to a certain extent, the whole point of the Deuce is to be able to serve as much good, delicious bass into your ear holes as possible. But the special thing about the Deuce is that it actually delivers even cleaner of a bass response compared to, let's say, the Scarlett Mini. Now, here is where I have to disagree with my overlords with regards to their marketing. You see, what they said is that the Deuce delivers 25 decibels of bass boost, but I, as well as my brewing care and my grass, would respectfully disagree. The bass boost is closer to that of, let's say, 16 to about 18 decibels, which is still a massive amount, but nowhere close to what FATfreq are actually stating. Now, the sound signature of the Deuce is what I would describe as a V-shape. It is undeniably emphasized in the bass, duh, but it is also emphasized in the general high frequencies. You would see that it is basically an untilted diffuse feel excluding the bass response. Now, at first glance, some people would say that, oh, the Deuce is going to be very, very bright as well as very, very bassy, which is, you know, fair. But what people need to understand, when it comes to tuning an IEM, the sum of its parts is greater than the whole. So while it might seem that, oh, there's a lot of treble as well as a lot of bass, in actuality, what happens is that the massive amounts of treble balance out the massive amounts of bass. Let me just get this straight. No, the Deuce is not a balanced IEM, not at all. But what I'm saying is that there is that kind of play between the treble and the bass that makes it sound very exciting while not making it sound, let's say, overly bright and sharp or even just overly bassy and muddy. The Deuce comes off as, yes, punches you in the face with bass, especially with the impedance adapter, which I'll get to later. But because the bass is so focused down into the lowest registers, that's where you get a lot of the punch and the emphasis without it sounding muddy or it bleeding into the mids. This is the kind of bass emphasis that I love, and quite frankly, it is a bass emphasis that I'm actually surprised that Mr. HBB is even allowing in his IEM. And on top of that, with the two dynamic drivers that are used in this configuration, you don't get any of the timbral issues that you get with, let's say, with BA drivers or even piezoelectric drivers. The Deuce is an IEM that is, well, colored, but still sounds quite natural. That if your idea of natural is being in a club with the subwoofers absolutely maxed out. On top of that, you have FATfreq's proprietary bass cannon technology, which, well, is still a bunch of marketing fluff, but does make for a bass texture that's very precise and not, let's say, sluggish at all. Now, the Deuce comes stock with wide bore tips, but they also work with narrow bore tips, which some pre-orders would receive as well. The wide bore tips are fairly okay, treble response is fine, nothing really stands out. It's a little bit peaky here and there. With narrow bore tips, what happens is that it shifts the energy of the treble down in the frequency as well as raising the magnitude a little bit. Translating from nerd talk, the treble becomes a little bit spicier, but at the same time smoother, if that makes sense. So in terms of tips, it really depends on which flavor that you're looking for. If you're looking for something that is slightly less emphasized but a bit more uneven, then the stock wide bore tips would be for you. On the other hand, if you want something that's a little bit more spicy, but again shifts the energy a little bit lower down in the frequencies, then by all means use the narrow bore tips, any kind of narrow bore tips. Finally, let's talk about the bass adapter, which is basically just a resistor adapter, in this case 15 ohms. I've explained how bass adapters work in my Truth Ear Red Shill video, so if you want more of an explanation, just go there, click on the video here. But for those of you who are too lazy to do so, let me just do a very quick refresher. The bass adapter works because the woofer is less susceptible to impedance changes as compared to the full range driver. What that means is that when you put a resistor in line, the woofer gets lowered in volume less than the full range driver, hence a bass boost. So with the 15 ohm adapter, what you get on the Deuce is roughly a 7 decibel increase in the bass. So if you're just tired of having just merely an 18 decibel bass boost in your stock Deuce, then here you go, 25 decibels of bass just for you. And you know what? Even with the impedance adapter, the Deuce still remains fairly clean in the bass. Yes, it is a lot. Quite frankly, it's too much for me. It is rattling my eardrums, but at the same time, I don't feel like the bass is drowning out literally every other instrument. Hell, one could say that it downright makes the Scarlett Mini sound like mud, even though in a vacuum it absolutely is not. Let me be clear again, the Deuce is absolutely a specialist IEM. You want to get a Deuce if you're someone who loves bass to the ends of the earth. But by extension, if you're someone who don't like bass, then again, why are you even here? Why are you looking at a FATfreq X HBB collab? This is not your territory. Alright, with the important stuff out of the way, let's just talk about the non-audio opinions. The Deuce uses a full resin build, which quite frankly is below par. Look, we live in an industry now where a lot of IEMs are coming with full resin builds as well as, let's say, a metal nozzle. So a full resin build, especially at $200+ US, just looking at the entire market as a whole, is below par. It's literally just below the average. Next up, you have the unboxing experience, which is Spartan. You're not gonna get too much. There's no fancy unboxing experience here. It's just you get the case, which in the pre-orders case would be a metal one, and that's kind of about it. All the accessories are there. The IEM is in there, which is great for me. Again, I love these kinds of packaging. There's not a lot of things that I have to throw away, but at the same time, I understand there are some people who really live for the unboxing experience. Now let's talk about the shoulds and shouldn'ts, why you should consider buying the Deuce and why you shouldn't consider buying one. Maybe get the Deuce if you're someone who is really interested in just pure bass performance. Well, hell, again, this is a FATfreq X HBB collab. It's literally a bass head's dream. Get the Deuce if you're interested in a bass that is, first of all, very emphasized, but second of all, very clean and focused down into the lowest registers. Next, get Deuce if you're someone who is terrified of BA drivers. The Deuce uses, again, a dual dynamic driver configuration, so no such thing as BA timbre in this case. And of course, get the Deuce if you're someone who likes to play around with the idea of impedance changes, because with the higher impedance you get, even more bass gets served up to you. And now for the reasons why maybe you shouldn't consider getting a Deuce. First of all, if you're someone who absolutely loves the concept of mid-bass, the Deuce is an IEM that is unabashedly one that's focused for sub-bass response. Mid-bass takes a back seat. So for those of you who really wants that extra slam, well, I'm sorry, this is really not the bass hits IEM for you. Do consider the Scarlett Mini, though at that point, the price increase is going to be considerable. Second of all, don't consider the Deuce if you're someone who absolutely needs some form of metal structure inside your IEMs, because again, the Deuce is just full resin, full stop. And third, if you just don't like the gamer aesthetic, because let's face it, black and red does look very cool, very edgy, but it's not really something that I'll be caught wearing outdoors. And there you go, these are my opinions slash shilling of the FATfreq X HBB Deuce. So for those of you who are still interested, well, don't wait, go down to my website at hangout.audio where we sell the Deuce and we ship them globally for free, with some exceptions. And of course, for those of you who are still a bit paranoid on the fence, well, come down to the Hangout. We're located at 29B Mall Street, level 3 at Chinatown. Come down, grab a cup of coffee and ask for the Deuce. We have them for demos, so come down, try them out, and then form your opinions. This is Chronicle for Hangout.audio, and remember kids, if it's not on the list, it doesn't exist. See you next week.